What Happens in the Woods is a true crime podcast. We discuss events that are often violent in nature. Listeners' discretion is advised.
Our case this episode is almost like something straight out of the movies. You know the ones, the old-style 1940s films where the wife plots with her lover to do away with the unsuspecting husband. The life insurance policy left behind would be enough to set them up for life as they're finally free to be together. Only it never quite happens that way, does it? People are messy and they tend to leave trails wherever they go. You can try as hard as possible to think of every outcome, plan for any occurrence, but you can never guarantee that something or someone won't slip you up. Gladys Broadhurst learned the hard way that eventually the lies you tell turn into the truths you want buried. Eventually, your past catches up with you, and no amount of lying will help save your ass. This is True Crime Podcast, What Happens in the Woods, with your hosts, Jess and Bryce. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome back. We've been gone for a very long time. Feel like we don't know what we're doing anymore. This is going to be interesting.
I know what I'm doing.
To you?
Yep.
But do you though?
I do.
Hi Bryce.
Hello.
Okay, so yeah, we had to cancel our regular upload, and I hated making that choice, but there's just no way we could have recorded in 113 degree weather, and yeah, it was miserable here for like 4 days straight, 5 days straight, and we don't have air conditioning here, so yeah, it's some bullshit.
Yeah.
But we're back. Hopefully this is like a one-off. I don't want to ever have to do this again.
No.
Cancel. That's not cool. So, what are your updates?
It was hot last week.
It was very hot last week. Yeah.
All you guys would have heard if we recorded would have been the sounds of air conditioning. Like, we have a portable air conditioner.
Yeah, in our room only.
Yeah.
The poor rest of the house suffered. Yeah, we spent a lot of time outside in a kiddie pool.
Yeah. With
our feet in the pool. And yeah. It was miserable. It was hell. It was just hell.
Yeah.
I absolutely hate it.
It was. And I thought we left California. I thought we left that behind, the 100+ degree heat.
Yeah. Yeah, but even like, I hated it. Yeah. And it made things, like you had to plan your day around what you were doing because of the weather. But I could go inside and turn on the fucking air conditioner.
Yeah.
And it was okay. Like, we could still cook, and we could not have to, walk around in nothing but booty shorts and a tank top. And this is never going to be without AC again. That is, as God is my witness.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't care what I got to do. It's just, I don't even care. I don't even care if it does never get 100 something degrees here again. I want a ceiling fan and I want AC.
Okay.
Those are my demands.
Okay.
Anyways, any other updates?
Yeah. I guess outside the United States, the United Kingdom was in the lead.
Oh, the UK.
Yeah.
Oh, back in the lead.
They are back.
Alrighty then. Any other updates?
No.
No?
No.
It's been 3 weeks since we recorded and you ain't got nothing.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, then we'll just get into the episode. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So this episode is another case that I came across while I was down a rabbit hole, and I kind of put it on the back burner, not giving it too much attention. It was just kind of interesting, but I didn't really read a whole lot on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is when I was researching a few episodes ago, Janance Freeman and Gertrude Jackson and, the murdered kids in Oregon. So that was from the early 1960s. And, I don't know how many times I've said it, at least 1 million, that I love old-timey crime.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of get a kick out of it because you think that people in previous generations are like, you always hear about how rigid they are and the strict morals and, there's prim and proper.
Yeah.
And you kind of think they're not going to have any deviancy. Like there's what kind of things are these people, crimes are these people going to commit? But some of like the worst criminals have come out of from decades ago, like Jack the Ripper, H.H. Holmes, Albert Fish. I mean, that was turn of the century. It's just crazy how bad some of those criminals are, even in today's standards.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of it was captured. I don't know. The internet spreads a lot of things now.
Well, yeah. But when, of course, they got away with it for a long time, or, in Jack the Ripper's case, or like Lavinia Fisher, like these people, Jack the Ripper didn't even, he or she is not even identified. And it wasn't the amount of crimes that they committed. It was the type of crime that they committed. So it's just, it's weird how you think of, previous generations and that they were just so, I don't know, straight-laced. But then you hear about, these horrific crimes, and that's what I guess fascinates me about it. Regardless, this case is like not on that level. I'm not trying to compare it. But she definitely interested me as far as like studying the psychology of kind of why she would do some of the things that she did, this person. Mm-hmm. And it was just kind of, like I said, it was an interesting read, and I kind of put it on the back burner. But by the end of like actually researching her and looking at her, it was just, I was flabbergasted because it was like the shit that you can get away with before, like you said, the internet existed and people are tracking your movements.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to talk about bigamist and murderess Gladys Lincoln. So she was born in 1906. She was raised in a very small town in Idaho. She was raised in a large Mormon family, very loving family. They babied her. She was the only girl out of 5 children. The other 4 children were boys, so she had 4 brothers. She was exactly in the middle. So she had 2 older, 2 younger brothers. She was a hellraiser, and she got away with a lot of shit. They just kind of swept under the rug, and they covered up for her. Everybody just kind of made excuses for her.
You say she was the youngest?
No, she's in the middle.
Oh, okay.
She's exactly in the middle. So they, kind of, in trying to keep her safe, they essentially made it so that she never had consequences to her actions.
Yeah.
She loved the spotlight. The family had, and of course, this is just an old-timey thing that you hear about. The family had a traveling singing group. Like right.
Like a Partridge Family.
Yes. And she was pretty much front and center. She played the piano. She sang. She played an accordion. Yeah, she just loved the spotlight. She loved the attention. She liked the male attention that she got. She was definitely considered like a very beautiful woman, young lady.
Yeah.
And yeah, she loved that. She loved to use that to her advantage. From what I could tell, she really hated small town life, and she wanted to be any place else. She wanted the action.
Yeah.
So she found it for a little while, at least. In 1927, she married her first husband, and that was William Hendricks. He's barely just a name in a sentence. That's about all the information I could find on him. He was there, and then he wasn't.
Okay.
They quickly divorced.
All right.
It was less than a year later. And keep in mind, obtaining a divorce in 1927.
Yeah, it's pretty rare.
It's pretty rare.
Or very tough.
She would not have been able to obtain it, essentially. I mean, women could, but you had to prove that you were being abused.
Yeah.
You had to prove that, your husband was cheating on you or whatever the case may be. As where a male could more easily obtain that, he would be believed, basically. So keep in mind that this happens less than a year later. What would she have had to have done to get him to obtain a divorce? You know what I mean? There's a number of things. I don't know what she did. I don't know how it came about, but I'm pretty sure that she didn't obtain that divorce.
Yeah. She probably just liked the road.
She's an odd one. She's definitely an odd one. So yeah, less than a year later, about 14 months after that, in August of 1928, she's married again. This time to a man from Burley, Idaho, who was named Albert Richardson. So the new Mrs. Richardson gave herself a middle name. There was no middle name on her birth certificate. So on her marriage license, she listed her name as Gladys June Raphs.
Okay.
Don't know why. She just felt like she needed the middle name. She had to be just a little more fancy.
Did that come from somewhere?
She just liked it. She liked the way it sounded. She said it sounded kind of, a little smart.
Okay.
Yeah. So while she added the middle name, she neglected to list that she had been previously married on the marriage license.
Uh-huh.
And
is that a big deal?
Kind of. Yeah, it sets a tone here. So they went to Utah and tied the knot. They were living in Burley, and Gladys and her husband were being treated medically by a chiropractor. Also, keep in mind, chiropractors were considered a little bit different back then.
Yeah.
So this is a man by the name of Dr. Willis Broadhurst. So Dr. Broadhurst and Gladys were more than likely having some sort of an affair. It's speculated that this is the reason that she and Mr. Richardson got a divorce in 1931.
Okay.
So after the divorce, Gladys is on her way she's on her way to Sacramento, California. She's leaving because of the scandal. She's caught having an affair with the local doctor, the chiropractor. Right. And he actually had to move his practice to a different town in Idaho because of the scandal. The chiropractor did. So she spent some time traveling with the family band. She was living in Sacramento over the next 7 years, but they were traveling. She would visit family. Don't know what she was doing for income at that time, other than maybe something that she earned from like the family band. I don't know. Then husband number 3 came into the picture. And this is a gentleman by the name of Carol Anderson. And they married in Reno. This is the early part of 1939. She decided to change her middle name again. So she decided June was just too plain. And she changed her middle name to Elaine. She thought that would be more sophisticated.
Okay.
So now she's Gladys Elaine Anderson. And the married couple decided, she decided that she was going to travel for a little bit still.
Yeah.
But they were married. So she eventually joined him down in Westwood, California. He worked for a lumber company that was pretty prestigious at the time. It was called Red River Lumber Company.
Uh-huh.
And actually, so when I was looking at this, one of the things that stood out to me, fun fact, completely unrelated, but fun fact, the story of Paul Bunyan and Babe the Blue Ox came out of marketing for like how we know it today was because of a marketing, like advertisement pamphlet that the Red River Lumber Company put out in 1916, between like 1916 and 1922. I didn't realize that wasn't like a Pacific Northwest thing. I thought it was like a Canadian Pacific Northwest story. And it's actually from the Great Lakes back east. It's not even a West Coast like folk tale.
I don't know what you're talking about. They're real. We already discussed this in a previous episode.
Okay. Well, whatever.
I've seen them.
You have not.
I've seen them.
Shut the fuck up. So yeah, this
my dad took me to go see them.
Yeah.
They're pretty tall.
The wooden statues.
They were real life depictions, not wooden statues.
Okay.
Anyway.
Believe your.
I will.
Whatever you tell yourself to sleep at night.
Naysayer.
I'm just letting you know.
Babe, the blue ox is real.
Sure.
All right. Moving on.
Okay. Moving on. That is how that folktale became so popular, is from that marketing. And I thought that was interesting. Obviously,
it's not true, but it's
okay. They furthered the story. Why wouldn't you want it to be true? Otherwise, you might not have ever heard of him. You wouldn't have known.
I wouldn't know. My dad still would have taken me to see the statues, the real life depictions.
What if the real life depictions were never made?
They would have been made.
Maybe back east. Maybe in the Great Lakes.
Oh no, they would have been made.
How would we have known out here?
Because everyone's seen them.
But he never came out here.
Yeah, he was out here. How do you think all those redwoods got chopped down?
Okay. All right. I just don't know how to argue with you. So Gladys loved.
It's not an argument.
It is an argument.
I win.
No, it's not. It's not no. I am the one with facts. I have done research. Okay, moving on.
Okay.
Gladys loved Southern California. It was busy. There was a lot to do. She was surrounded by very good-looking men who worked in this lumber industry. Westwood is outside of UCLA. It had just been built in like 1913. And this town, specifically Westwood, is like, it's one of those towns that was specifically founded for the lumber workers. So it was a company town. So she was just surrounded by all of these, big, tough, good-looking, strapping men, and she loved it. Yeah. So she definitely did not allow a little thing like her marriage to get in her way. And a year after moving there, she and Carol were divorced.
Jeez.
Yeah. So husband number 4 followed soon after. This is a gentleman by the name of Virgil Warner. He's also an employee of the Red River Lumber Company. They were married June 9th, 1940. With all of the scandal that this marriage caused, because you got to think like this is a company town. Most of these workers see each other day in, day out. Yeah. Their wives and girlfriends and sweethearts, all, kind of know each other and hang out, and everybody knows everybody. And here these two try to, I don't know what they thought they were going to do, but they thought they weren't going to get caught in a scandal. And they did. So eventually they ended up having to move. He ended up having to get a transfer. And so they moved to Medford, Oregon, so that Virgil could, relocate. It's not a promotion. And Gladys was not happy. Medford was not nearly as entertaining as, Westwood was in this LA area. Yeah. She's not having fun. So she decides by 1941, she doesn't want to be married anymore to him. Eventually they get divorced and she ends up back in Sacramento.
She rejoined the band.
And there's no mention of the band after this, so I'm not sure. By this time too, World War II is getting going, and I believe that all 4 of her brothers served in the military. So there probably was no band at this point, around this time.
They were on hiatus.
Yeah. So 1942, Gladys has kind of been bouncing around, and, she's looking for a new husband. She's bored. So 1942, 35-year-old Gladys married 24-year-old Lieutenant Leslie Lincoln.
Okay.
He was stationed out of Fort Ord in the Monterey Bay area. I'm not sure how they met. She was living in Sacramento at the time, but I can imagine that being the state capital, there were military that came and went. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think the Army was that far inland.
No, I'm sure they weren't.
Maybe she just went to Monterey.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, she got around. So this is...
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, she did. This is the 5th marriage for her. However, she listed it once again as the 2nd on her license. She also listed her age as 32. So this woman has no qualms about lying about anything. She can give a shit. It's her story. She's making it up as she goes. Fuck anybody who defies her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what cannot be confirmed is if she was officially divorced by this time from husband number 4. So it might not have been finalized.
Okay.
So there is that concern where this is maybe where her bigamy started. She obviously was not opposed to having affairs while married.
Yeah.
But this is maybe the first instance of the bigamy. So while the lieutenant was serving his country, it's, wartime, Gladys was free to do as she pleased for about 3 years. He was not home. So she's living in Sacramento.
All by herself.
All by her lonesome.
With no one to put her in check.
Right.
And her husband overseas.
Right. And it's during this time that she developed a nasty addiction to a barbiturate called Nimbatol, which is actually marketed. It was marketed as a sleeping aid.
Yeah.
You're supposed to take like 3 grams of this. She was taking upwards of 15 grams a day of this barbiturate.
Okay.
So then I started to kind of look at it because, the FDA regulations weren't a thing back in the 40s.
Oh,
so this was a very easy drug to OD on. And in some cases that I was reading, it's administered as a medication to death row prisoners to put them to death.
Okay.
Right. And she's taking 15 grams, 5 times the amount of recommended dosage she's taking on a daily basis.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's August of 1945. She's bored. She's bored with her life. She's bored with her husband. He had been discharged, honorably after World War II. She's bored. He doesn't do it for her. She's bored with herself. The drugs aren't, doing it for her like they used to. The husband's not doing it for her. And she's just, for whatever reason, she decides that she's going to contact Dr. Willis Broadhurst, the chiropractor from Idaho. Some 20 years previous, they had a little love affair, and she just decides out of nowhere she's going to contact him.
Yeah.
See what he's up to. You never know. Misconnections.
Hello, William.
Yes. So they actually begin corresponding by telegram, of all things.
Hell yeah.
I love it.
Modern day cell phones.
Yes. I can find no motive for her doing this. There's no information that she's moving at this point, up until this point, she's just a serial wife, basically. Yeah. She's just going from husband to husband, relationship to relationship. She's not harming anybody necessarily, but she's not, treating them the best. But nobody's died. Nobody's been poisoned. Nobody's been... I don't see her motive for reaching that far back in the past to connect with this guy. So they're, telegramming, and then eventually they're writing letters. At some point, she just can't keep it in her pants, and she gets tired of this kind of thing. And she decides that she's just going to, meet up with him. Why not?
Okay.
Why not? She's, kind of been fielding to get some answers from him, like, oh, are you married? Do you have any heirs? Do you have any family? Do you have, the typical questions that you would ask somebody that you're trying to reconnect with, I guess. Who would you leave your money to if you were to die?
It's been a while. She needs to know these things.
Sure. So she, kind of lets him, she puts it out there that she remembers him fondly, their nights of sweet love, and that she'd love to reconnect, that she is now a single woman as a widow, and that she wants to reconnect.
Oh, okay. She's a widow. She said she's a widow now.
She said she's a widow. Yeah.
Okay.
So after some months of kind of reconnecting, she learns that he's become a pretty big catch. He is well-respected chiropractor in the area. He's still in the Caldwell area, in Idaho, that he had to move to after they created their little scandal.
Yeah.
He's got a good amount of property. He actually owns like a dairy farm in Caldwell, and then he also owns a cattle ranch in Jordan Valley, which is in Oregon.
Okay.
So he's practicing. So he's got all of these streams of revenue coming in.
Diversified.
Yes. He's about to retire. He's going to leave the practice to his nephew, who is also a chiropractor. And the nephew's living with him at the dairy farm. And he's set to take over, this business from him. And he's going to focus on the cattle ranching. Okay.
Okay.
So Gladys is she's ecstatic. Like, oh, this is the best news that she could have gotten. Because who doesn't love a good cattle ranch,
I guess.
Right. So remember, at this point, she's still married to husband number 5.
Yeah. Lieutenant.
Right. It was not going very well. He had actually filed for divorce in April of 1946, stating that she was cruel, basically, that it was too much to handle, and she was just a cruel person.
Okay.
She's also at this time.
And this is a guy that's been through war. He's been deployed.
Right.
And yet she's too cruel.
She's cruel.
She must. No, I'm just saying
she's
for
psycho.
him to say that. That's
right.
Been through war, World War II,
right.
Deployed, Army. He's a lifer. He was honorably discharged. And then his wife is too cruel. That's some shit there.
Right. Yeah, she's definitely a character. She's also possibly having an affair with a gentleman by the name of Leo O'Shea in Sacramento at the same time that she's writing to Dr. Broadhurst. Willis.
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 We're talking about Willis.
But yeah, she's, she's got these 3 guys at least that we know of on the hook. So she's busy, but she's not too busy to hatch the scheme to snag herself a doctor, because this is an opportunity.
Yeah.
So this is where the story starts to just become fucking nuts. And I have a feeling it's the drugs that kind of aided her in this,
Drugs are bad, okay?
It is. This is very bad. So she tells Willis that she's a widow. Her husband, Leslie Lincoln, died during the war. Okay, he was killed in England.
Okay.
And that he has an evil twin brother named Lester Lincoln. Looks just exactly like her husband. The only way you can tell them apart is because of a small birthmark above his ear, which is what her true husband does have.
Yeah.
Right. But this is Lester. So Leslie is dead. God rest his soul. Lester is the evil twin.
Okay.
Who is obsessed with her.
Yes.
Won't leave her alone.
Yes.
But on the twist, she has this $3 million inheritance coming from an Aunt Mary who passed away in Hawaii, as well as an inheritance from her parents who are dead, which I couldn't confirm whether they were actually deceased or not at this time. It's a good possibility that they were, but can't confirm it. So she's saying that she is going to be this, very wealthy woman soon. As soon as the probate is finalized within the next year.
She's just making this up.
Oh yeah, this is bullshit. This is all bullshit. So she's essentially saying that so that Willis won't be concerned that she's after him for his money.
Correct. Okay.
Right. So, there's this $3 million estate that's going through probate. Lester found out about it, and he wants the money, and he wants her. So, he's forcing her into this marriage that she doesn't want, essentially. She's being forced to, have this relationship with Lester, who's the evil twin.
Yeah.
Her only hope at this point is to get as far away from him as possible and to, have help relocating. And wouldn't it be just so nice if they could reconnect and they could resume their relationship that had, had to abruptly end 20 years ago. And it would help her so much, and he would be her savior. And it's a lie. It's all a lie.
Yeah.
But it's not even like a great lie. Like anybody with I even feel like in 1946, even if you couldn't verify these facts, it just sounds so outlandish. $3 million. Give me a break. Give me a break. There's no way. She's been struggling all of her life. Her family is Mormon from Idaho, living in this, fucking one donkey town. I don't like $3 million from this mysterious aunt in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And she just has to make it the year through the probate, and it's all hers.
Nice.
Yeah. So for whatever reason, Willis, and I have to imagine he's been somewhat educated because he is practicing some form of medicine.
Yeah.
He buys it. He buys it completely, and he just cannot help but want to be the man that rescues her.
Yeah.
So it just kind of, it isn't long before they're making plans. They're going to meet up. Right. So Gladys tells her husband that, her legal husband, that
the evil twin Lester.
No, this is Leslie.
Leslie, sorry.
Right. That she's going to visit some family, but he's not invited. He can't come.
You have to stay here.
Right. Don't follow me.
Yeah.
Don't come where I'm coming. Don't ask me any questions. I'm going and you're not invited. And it's odd because he had just rescinded his petition for divorce from her a couple of weeks.
I was just going to say,
yeah.
This is the same guy that said that she was cruel.
Right. So they're trying to reconcile. And then she says, yeah, I'm out and don't follow me. And he had rescinded the divorce like 2.5 weeks prior to her leaving. Because they were going to make it work.
Hey, judge, about that paperwork.
Right. So she takes off for Reno, where she meets up with the doctor. And the two of them are married on May 18th, 1946.
Wow.
Yeah, they spend a couple days together, and then she goes back to California because she has to sort out this probate thing.
Correct. Yeah.
And there's these millions of dollars that are coming to her.
Yes.
And she has to figure out how to, get the evil twin off of her, off of her back, I guess you would say.
Stop chasing her and her millions.
So, this all, before they can make a real go of their marriage, she's got to close her loose ends. So Willis sends her on her way with some money, and he goes back to his ranch in Idaho. And they barely have like 2 or 3 days together, I think, before all this happens. And they keep the marriage a secret. They don't tell anybody about it. He doesn't tell any of his family. And of course, who's she going to tell? Her husband? She doesn't tell anybody.
No, she could tell her husband's evil twin.
Right. So I don't know why he wouldn't have told some people. No. That to me didn't make sense. The doctor. He didn't tell any of his family. Nobody.
It happened so fast. It's a whirlwind
it
romance.
happened over a few months, though, their correspondence.
Yeah, but that's when correspondence took like 3 weeks to get anywhere.
I guess. I don't know. So the marriage, like I said, it's secret, but some of the letters, the love letters that they send back and forth are intercepted by Leslie.
The evil twin.
By the husband.
No, he's the evil twin now.
Right, the evil twin. it's like a month after they get married in June that he finds some love letters.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like, what the fuck is going on here? And he pretty much at that point, he's like, you're fucking done. You got to leave. And he files for divorce again. And this time he adds the charge of bigamy to the cruelty. Yeah. So he's definitely going to obtain a divorce with with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I'm not really certain what her plan was. She got her husband to stop the divorce, but then she went and got married illegally to another man. And then she turned around and returned to her legal husband. And then they just kind of did that for a month. And what? Like, what was her plan in all of this? It didn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me. And that's, like I said, I kind of feel like this is where the drug use had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, was she still on it?
Oh, yeah. She definitely is not like coherently planning anything. It's just kind of like on a whim almost. She set things in motion, which have taken time. The correspondence and reaching out to Dr. Willis.
Yeah.
That took some time. It was over a few months that they, kind of rekindled things. But once you did that, what were you going to do with him? Like, what was the plan? How were you going to go back and forth between two marriages and a side piece? Like, it didn't make sense to me, like, what she was actually planning to do.
I think with someone like that it's a next step in her like, what do you call that? I guess her excitement. Like, cause now instead of just maybe. Like, cause she has the husband, now she has the doctor, and you said she may had someone else in Sacramento,
right?
And now this is the next step, boyfriend. Now I have an aunt. I don't know, just her stories get more extravagant as the next marriages. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's definitely outlandish. Like her behavior, just because nobody's putting her in check.
No, that's the thing.
Like her family used to put her in check.
Yeah.
They're not putting her in check anymore. She's just out there on her own doing whatever the fuck she wants. Yeah, it definitely, that's where I started to think, like, what is her true motive here? Like, what is she trying to obtain? What is it that she wants? I guess, yeah, that kind of does make sense. Like, she's just looking for the next high, essentially.
Because, now it's drug use, and now it's, husband. Now she goes back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Rekindle something 20 years. Well, not the very beginning, but the doctor.
I mean, 20 years have passed. Yeah.
No. Yeah. And 20 years ago, they had a scandal and he had to move his practice. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's something.
It just seems like every marriage, there's more steps to it. I just think she's trying to fill something in her that's like a hole that's not fillable. Yeah,
I could very well be. So yeah, there's just some weird shit. She eventually after Leslie Lincoln is going to file for divorce again.
Yeah.
She's kind of like, oh shit, I don't have a place to go. I'm going to have to get to Idaho because I can go to Willis.
Yeah.
She doesn't drive and she doesn't have a means to get there. So she sends this letter to Willis's nephew.
Of course she does.
Right. And to me, it was like, you're out of your fucking mind. Like you're not thinking. So Willis is on his cattle ranch moving his herd, and Leslie files for divorce again, and she's making up this story that she's in danger of losing her foot in this letter. She makes up this outlandish story that she's in the hospital. The doctor told her she stepped on a rusty nail. The doctors in the hospital have told her that it's not looking so good, and that foot needs to come off.
Yeah.
She sends this in a letter to the nephew that doesn't even know she fucking exists because the marriage was done in secret and still has not been told to anybody.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know what to think. She's basically saying, I know that my husband is out on the cattle ranch and he's hurting. Can you go find him immediately? I need him here. He needs to come and get me. And I don't want to lose my foot. So I need him to come. Right?
Yeah.
Because if she had just written to him and said, hey, I'm done here. Can you please come and get me? Maybe that wouldn't have gotten the same response. I don't know. It had to be a story. It had to be something so freakishly like, outlandish.
Yeah. Everything has to be a circumstance and
right
to aware that they can't say no.
Right. So she sends this letter to the nephew, go get Willis. He's got to come to me soon, like as soon as possible. He needs to be here within days. This is serious. This is life or death. And by the way, she's, about to be kicked out of the room that she's renting and she's going to be homeless. And the story just gets more and more wild.
Yeah.
So he takes this letter. He hunts down on this 2,000 acre property that they have where the farm or where the ranch is, hunts down Willis. And he's like, hey, interesting letter I got from this woman that I don't know who she is. And, she says that, you're her husband. And by the way, she's going to lose her foot. So you better go get her. She's going to die. And he drops everything and he goes. And the nephew's like, well, fuck, I guess so. Okay. Didn't know. Thanks for telling me. I only live in the same house with you. I'm going to take over your medical practice. But, thanks. So he gets there, of course. Willis gets there within like a 10-hour drive. He races there as soon as he can in a 10-hour drive.
Oh, wow.
Well, I mean, that's not bad for
Idaho to Sac.
Idaho to Sac, yeah. So
that's really good.
No, it really was. She's not going to lose her leg, obviously. I don't know what she thought she was going to accomplish because there's obviously been no injury to her leg. So he gets there. She's fucking high as a kite. He obviously recognizes this and he knows that she needs to detox. But he has to get her out of where she's going to be because they can't pay rent.
Yeah.
So they go to a hotel and he's kind of thinking things over. Like, what am I going to do? What do we do? He decides that he's going to take her back to his property in Caldwell. And he gets her there. He and the nephew decide that because they're chiropractors, they should not treat her because their license is a little bit different.
Yeah.
So they call a physician out to evaluate her, and he confirms that she's in need of rehab. She needs to detox. That she is in danger of overdosing if she keeps at the dosage that she's taking.
Yeah.
And so they take her to a private hospital. She gets clean. It takes a few weeks. And what it sounded like is they actually just kind of substituted what she was taking for another drug. Like something to get her off of the barbiturate. But I don't think she's actually clean. I just think that they have substituted something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after she's released, she goes with, Willis back to his ranch in Jordan Valley, and they kind of finish recouping. And this is probably like if the ghost of Willis Broadhurst could go back in time and say, this is where I fucked up.
Yeah.
This is where he would say, like, yeah, that's where I done did it, is right then and there. So while there, Gladys would meet up with the next man that she, kind of snared in her little web of sex lies and husbands. And she couldn't help herself. She wanted some fun. And 23-year-old Alvin Williams, who had been a hired hand at the ranch, looked like some fun. So she said, why not?
Of course she did.
So this little plan in her head was soon hatched so that she could get some alone time with Alvin and her husband. The good doctor would end up agreeing to the plan, even though he hated it all. It was an attempt to please her.
Okay.
Well, when we get back from the break, I will get into this plan and the next level of craziness in this story.
I can't wait.
It's fucking crazy. Word reaches Gladys that her location's been found out by husband number 5. So the county sheriff was attempting to serve her with the official divorce papers.
Yeah.
She ends up evading them. Her and Willis leave his ranch, just missing the sheriff showing up. But word gets back to her that the sheriff was trying to serve her.
Yeah.
She kind of plays it off as it must be something to do with the probate. Because the probate is not finalized, that she's going to get her $3 million. But she realizes what it is. I'm sure she's been served enough times by now. She knows what the fuck is going on. So, of course, she couldn't let Willis figure out what was going on, because how would she explain that?
Yeah.
So she couldn't imagine having to tell him the truth, that there was no dead husband, no evil twin, no $3 million, and whatever else she'd lied about at this point. So she knows that she's got to get back to California somehow, and she's got to handle this, because she's got to, even if they, don't serve her, these proceedings are going to go through. She needs to respond.
Yeah.
So she comes up with this plan to get back to California to deal with this. She told Willis that she needed to handle this on her own, that she didn't want to involve him because she needed to, be strong and not be weak, and she could handle this, and she needed to face Lester, the evil twin. And she needed to, for once and for all, she needed to just finalize this. So she's got to get there somehow. She doesn't drive. Okay. Whether it's because she's high all the time or she just actually doesn't know how to drive, I don't know. Willis is like, well, I will go with you, but I can't go with you right now. And he wanted to go with her, but it was haying season, and he needed to be at his ranch. He couldn't leave. It was just not the right time.
Couldn't nephew have done it?
Well, he's working the practice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe on like some subconscious level, he knew that she was lying, and that's why he was like, oh, I need to go with you.
Yeah, he's like, I'll go with you, and call her on her bullshit.
Right. But Gladys insisted that she had to do it, and that it would be better if he trusted someone they, could take her instead, so that he wouldn't have to leave the ranch. And for whatever reason, Willis settled on having Alvin drive his wife to California for what was supposed to be just a few days. And he was even telling him, like, I will pay you $5 a day plus expenses to do it. And so how much do you think $5 in 1946 would equal today?
46? I would probably be $100.
A little bit lower.
Oh.
70. So $70 a day plus expenses just to drive his wife. Okay.
And have sex with her.
So it's just supposed to be a few days. It actually is almost 2 months before they decide to return to the property in Caldwell.
Oh.
2 months. And
okay.
Right. So he ends up paying Alvin about $4,000.
Gee.
In what would equal about $4,000 in our money, in like today's money, plus expenses. So Alvin and Gladys went on a very nice vacation on the doctor's dime, because he's sending her money as well throughout that period.
Oh.
Yeah. So during those couple of months, the two of them visited 2 of Gladys's brothers. How she explained to Alvin, I have no fucking clue. How she explained that he was sleeping in the same bed with her, no fucking clue, because they knew she was married. Nobody said shit.
No.
Right. So visited 2 out of the 4 brothers, finalized the divorce with husband number 5. She made Alvin husband number 7.
Wow.
So,
but she didn't divorce Willis.
No.
Okay.
Well, Willis isn't legal,
weird.
and neither is Alvin. Because the divorce, the paperwork, the court proceedings are finalized, takes a year. And at this time, it takes a year to actually, like, your divorce is done. So she won't actually be officially divorced from the lieutenant until 1947.
Okay.
Right. But she's already married. She's been married to Willis now for a couple of months. And she decides that, hey, you know what? I'm sleeping with Alvin. I might as well marry him too. Why the hell not?
Seems logical.
Just have a lot of fun.
That's right.
Yeah. So they made a quickie stop to Reno, got married. And everywhere they went, the couple registered as husband and wife so they could share a room. So they were not even trying to separate themselves. So I really had to think about this for a minute. People didn't have photo IDs during this time. Most people.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And I don't think most people even had like copies of their birth certificates. And I know they didn't have social security cards. It wasn't a thing. So who was going to know if you weren't who you said you were? Who was going to know?
Yeah, I guess in the 40s. Yeah, it's not.
Nobody's going to know.
Yeah.
So Gladys signed her license as Elaine Hamilton. Don't know where Hamilton came from. Elaine, remember, is the second middle name that she chose.
Okay.
So she didn't use her name, but Alvin used his. They both also lied about their ages. At this point, it's just par for the course. It doesn't really make a difference because bad is bad. They both are doing this shitty thing, but it is part of the routine that she's got in play now. Like this is part of her MO.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's also during this trip that Gladys began to want husband number 6 to disappear. And she wanted Alvin to take care of it for her. So they began to plant the seed. Like she began to kind of feed it to him like, oh, wouldn't it be great if the doctor was out of the way? They saw a movie where that was basically like the whole plot of the movie was, you know, the wife
killing the husband. Yeah,
the wife and the boyfriend plotted to murder the husband so that he'd be out of the way. They had his money and they could just live their life together. And of course, in the movie, they're caught and, you know, it doesn't go well from them. But she did not take that lesson.
Let's say she thinks she's different.
Right. Because she's going to outsmart everybody.
That's right.
So Alvin's not, you know, sold on this idea, but at this point, he's just kind of this, he's a kid. And he just is like, yeah, I'll do whatever. I don't even care. I'm having fun. She's a good lay. I'm getting paid to drive her, all these places. What could go wrong? He's just kind of duped, basically. She's got, the doctor around one finger and this cowboy kid around her other finger.
Yeah.
So when they finally returned to Caldwell, mind you, it's like 7.5 weeks later, Gladys made such a stink about the doctor's finances that he changed his will to make her the sole heir of his estate and fortune. It was like immediately she got back into town and he's talking about taking this hunting trip with friends. And she's like, oh, no, you can't go hunting. You're going to leave me destitute and without a husband. And what am I going to do? How am I going to live? Nobody remembers that she's supposed to get $3 million in January of 1947.
Yeah, it's all forgotten.
Right.
That's why she went back to SAC to take care of it.
Right. So, nobody's contradicting her whatsoever. And he's like, oh, yeah, it'll be fine. He changes his will. Yeah.
Wrong move, buddy.
Very wrong move. You should never do that kind of shit. So she gets that changed. And then, of course, now he has her approval to go on this hunting trip. Then they plan, her and Alvin, she kind of feeds it to Alvin, kind of spoon feeds it to Alvin. Cause sounds like such a
naive
doofus.
Yeah.
Yeah. The poor guy, he really was just part of her scheme. I don't think he had an original thought in his body. So her plan is that Alvin's going to lie in wait for Willis on the highway between his properties in Caldwell and Jordan Valley, like the next time he makes a trip.
Yeah.
Gladys supplied Alvin with money to buy a used truck and some whiskey for liquid courage to be able to do the job.
Yeah.
Because he starts to chicken out. He's like, I don't think I can do it.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, no. You've got to do it. How can I make you do it? If the sex is not enticing you, will the alcohol entice you?
Oh, yeah.
So their first chance came October 14th. Willis was going to check on his property in Jordan, in the Jordan Valley. He is taking his horse in a trailer with him so that he could ride the property. And Alvin was to, once they knew when he was leaving, Alvin was to, hurry out there before he left and, wait, basically. The idea being that he was supposed to, act like the truck had broken down. And he was broken down on the side of the road. Mind you, nothing is mentioned in either one of their recounts of this story that, is he supposed to not recognize Alvin? Like, wouldn't he know that that's Alvin? And why is Alvin there on the side of the road where he's not supposed to be?
He's wearing glasses. You can't. Just like Superman.
And neither one of them have like any thought as to that. I guess I don't know. It didn't make sense to me. So of course the doctor is going to recognize Alvin. I mean, he knows this guy. He's not happy with this guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's worked for him. He knows who the fuck this is. He may not recognize the truck because he just bought that truck, but he's going to recognize this guy. So, Alvin's going to be out there. The truck's broken down. He's got the hood up. He's frustrated, whatever. And, what's he going to do? How's he going to get the truck fixed? And, oh man, Dr. Willis, you came by at the right moment and you're going to save me. By the time, though, Willis actually, they're anticipating that, Willis is going to leave first thing in the morning. So Alvin had left prior the day before, like the night before at 11:30.
Yeah.
After they learned that he was going to be going the next day. They're assuming that Willis is going to be, could pass him maybe like first thing in the morning. And that it's going to work out so that Alvin's not out there for very long. He's going to take care of this and get the fuck out. He's waiting until 3:30 in the afternoon on the side of the road with the hood of the truck open. Not much traffic is passed by this. Like, it's the highway in between Idaho, Oregon, and Nevada.
Yeah.
There's some traffic though. And he's seen 3 times by the same people who are going back and forth on running errands between property and the nearest town.
Yeah.
So he's seen, and it looks kind of weird that, he's there from sun up with the hood of his truck open.
It's a little sus.
Right. And he's not doing anything. He's just sitting in the truck, just waiting. Because as soon as he, sees Willis's car come, he gets out and he starts tinkering. Well, not very, as soon as he was waiting there for more than an hour, he should have left. Like, it's just stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Willis comes along. Alvin waves to him to stop.
Yeah.
Willis pulls over. They start looking at the truck. Alvin comes behind him with a large wrench, hits him on the back of the head. Okay.
Yeah.
The official version of how the murder happened, and of course, like what Alvin says, are completely different things. Of course, the speculation of the official accounts are just that. They're speculation because nobody else was there but he and Alvin. Nobody saw this happen. So I'll kind of give you like the official version first, and I'll get into Alvin's recount of his version of things. Basically, by the autopsy and the evidence that was there, the doctor pulled over after seeing the truck or being waved at by Alvin. Alvin does say that he waved him down.
Yeah.
While his back was turned, or while he was, looking into the truck, he was attacked and hit on the back of his head 3 times with a very large object. And they do find the wrench eventually. And so they do know that it was the wrench that did it. And Alvin confirms that.
Now, so who's telling the story? Alvin? Alvin
tells them a version. And from the evidence and what he does and doesn't say, they kind of put together a different, more plausible story.
Yeah. Okay.
The authorities.
I thought you were saying that the doctor was telling this story.
No. So he's hit 3 times on the back of his head.
Okay.
and that wasn't enough to kill him. So he was shot with a shotgun.
Okay.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the good doctor is dead. No one would have known to be suspicious of anything if Willis's horse had not been found on the 15th of October, wandering in a field. He was found by a guy who was well acquainted with Willis because he was a property owner nearby where the ranch was. And he recognized this horse. He had ridden this horse before. So he knew it belonged to Willis.
Yeah.
So the gentleman phoned to the farm in Caldwell, and Gladys spoke to him and asked him to keep her posted. Of course, at this point, she knows damn well what's going on, but she's can't let in on anything. So later that day, and of course at this time, she's not concerned. She's like, oh yeah, just keep me posted. I'm sure it's fine. The family starts to kind of get a little weirded out because, like, why would his horse just be randomly in this guy's field? Like, why would that have happened?
Yeah.
She's like, I don't know. I'm sure it's fine. It's fine. So later that day, there's a phone call that comes in that they found the truck. Somebody else had found the truck and the trailer.
Yeah.
They were abandoned on this stretch of road that nobody could think of. Why would Willis have been there, and why would he have left his truck and trailer there? Makes no sense. He wouldn't have been traveling on that road.
No.
It wasn't near his property, and it wasn't the main highway. So again, at first she's not concerned, and then as people start reacting, she becomes inconsolable, and she just becomes like this catatonic mess. She can't answer anybody. She's just a crying, sobbing mess.
Of course she is.
Right. So searches for Willis begin. People that worked on his ranch and neighbors all come out in the county, and they're searching all over the place for him. And it was the next morning when his nephew, Dr. Floyd Adam, started to become really concerned. They don't know where he's at. You know, they found the truck, they found the horse. There's searching going on. There's no sighting of him, of Willis. So he also is, Gladys's suspect. she's sus. And he's like, I don't have a good feeling about this. So he decides that he's going to go to the local sheriff with the information of, hey, this person's missing.
Yeah.
It's very suspicious. We probably should call in some authorities. So he goes over the information of, what they know so far. And Floyd also mentions to the sheriff that he is concerned that Gladys is not who she says to, that she is. He relayed, her odd behavior, her drug addiction, and also the secrecy of the marriage.
Yeah.
As well as at this point, time-wise, she and Willis had been married about 5 months. She had been gone for 3 of that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So physically, she had been with him for about a month before her and Alvin went on their little vacation.
Yeah.
And then they were gone for 2 months. And then, she's been back a little less than a month at this point. So she's not been in residence with her husband. And he's been supporting her this whole time. And, all these outlandish things that she needed and all this stuff that was going on. It was definitely highly suspect. So the sheriff kind of kept this information stored away. Not really, you can never tell that early on. The nephew could have been the person who would have been the suspect.
Yeah.
He, ideally, if nobody knew about the new will, he would have been the most logical person to suspect. So, the sheriff's kind of like, okay, yeah, I'll keep that in mind. Thank you. He also mentions Alvin to the sheriff, and, again, the sheriff's kind of like, okay, sure. Okay.
Yeah, we'll look.
Right. He knows, of course the sheriff is like, well, at some point I'm going to have to speak to Gladys, and I'm going to have to speak to Alvin if they can't locate him. Obviously, these are people of interest. So they reach, they kind of because it's between multiple counties, there's multiple sheriff and state entities that have to play. So they meet up in Jordan Valley. They speak to some of the men who've been searching, And they get information from the man who passed by Alvin in his truck about 3 times.
Yeah.
And he kind of, is like, hey, that's out of the ordinary. I don't know if he did anything. I don't recognize the guy, but I could describe him. I can describe him. I might be able to ID him if possible.
Yeah.
Just something that's out of the ordinary doesn't happen usually. And so, he kind of relays that information to the sheriff. So of course, then the sheriffs have that information too of like, hey, who knows who that is? Could be something, could be not. They don't know. So they searched the vehicle and the trailer for any evidence, and there's not much found, but it is noted that the keys were in the ignition, just left. Didn't look like there was any harm to the vehicle. Nothing looked broken. The trailer looked fine. It starts right up when they turn the keys in the ignition. So they know right off the bat that he didn't just leave that there. He would not have just left that there, let his horse go, and then wandered off.
Yeah.
They're suspecting foul play pretty much right away. So further in the investigation along the highway between, close to where his property was, where Willis would have traveled, they find a little area where the gravel has been, like the dirt on the side of the road's been disturbed. It looks like multiple vehicles. There's also 2 rocks that are found there that have blood on them. They are later able to confirm that it's human blood. So they know, that's could be a good indication that that's the area.
Yeah.
So they now consider this a homicide, and they quickly move to meet with Gladys and speak with her. So the sheriffs show up at the Caldwell farm. Up until this point, Gladys refused to go anywhere. She was just so inconsolable, and she was just a blubbering mess. She wouldn't even go down to where they thought, the last known whereabouts of her husband.
Yeah.
So they show up there. They come in and they, are talking with her. And then they kind of get a 2-for-1 deal as Alvin is there as well. He just couldn't stay away.
Okay.
Fucking idiot.
Well, he is young.
Yeah. So I found it funny. I read in my research that she introduced Alvin to the sheriff as, quote, her chauffeur and bodyguard. Who the fuck are you? The queen?
Yeah.
Like you're the queen of England? You need a chauffeur and a bodyguard?
The queen of Jordan Valley.
Right. I'm sure that like raised a lot of eyebrows. She's so over the top. So the sheriff and the deputy sheriffs from multiple counties are now involved, and due to, where the crime happened, most likely happened in the property, every last one of them suspect that Alvin Williams and Gladys Broadhurst were in some way involved in the disappearance at this point. There's too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Gladys picks up on that, and she pulls out her old, ace in the hole, the dead husband, and the evil twin who just can't leave her alone. And maybe the twin Lester came looking for Willis. And maybe someone thought she was, really worth that $3 million she was always talking about. And they figured they could cash in if they kidnapped Willis. And it couldn't have been her beloved Alvin, because he was like a brother to Willis.
Right.
And they, he had been with her the entire day. And there's no way that he could have been at the Caldwell property and on that highway. There's just no way that could have even happened. At this point, nobody had even questioned her. She's just freely offering this information. And it's so erratic and so all over the place. She's just making herself look stupid.
Yeah. What brothers were they? Cain and Abel?
Right. So the sheriff, they hold Alvin on suspicion for about, 24 hours. They have him. Gladys is just beside herself. At one point, they take Alvin to a diner, and, they're eating dinner, and they're kind of questioning him. At this point, he hasn't said much of anything, but they're kind of going around and taking him to where the truck was found and taking him to where the horse was found. And they're trying to get anything out of him. She shows up at this diner where the two, a sheriff and a sheriff's deputy and Alvin, they have him, and they're they're eating dinner. They're pausing for the night.
Yeah. She
shows up and she says, "Are you done with him? Can I take him? I need him to drive me." And they're like, "Bitch, no." And the deputy sheriff ends up "I'm going to drive you. I will drive you where you need to go. Alvin stays with us."
Okay.
It's just, it's erratic.
Why? They didn't bring that guy that saw him on the highway 3 times?
So they do. They do eventually, okay. And he says he's not 100% sure that it's Alvin. Okay. I know. All right. He was wearing different clothes, is what the guy said, and I'm like, well, no shit, he's wearing different clothes. Like, what does that have to do with it?
You wear the same clothes every day? I don't know.
I mean, it's 1946. People didn't have wardrobes like we do now.
Well, no. Plus, it's
you have to assume
a rancher area. I mean, they're not
right
billionaires or millionaires or even hundredaires. I don't know.
But you have to assume somebody's at least going to change their shirt. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to be wearing the same clothes days and days in a row. I don't know. I'm not sure. That was his claim, was that he was wearing different clothes and he couldn't really tell. So
could he at least describe what clothes he was? You know what I mean? And then they could see if he owned those pairs.
Right. Well, yeah, that makes sense. But, I don't, and maybe they did. Maybe they did. I don't know. I didn't come across anything that said that, but it doesn't, to the sheriffs, it didn't really matter. They were pretty sure that given how because Alvin was jittery. Like he at one point couldn't even light his own cigarette. He was shaking so bad. Obviously something's going down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Gladys, she's beside herself. She repeatedly brings up the twin brother and the late husband. And then lo and behold, a letter arrives on the morning of October 17th that was under the door that says, quote, "Your cowboy," meaning Alvin, "didn't do it. But don't start anything or I'll get you the same as I did, doctor. I warned you and I need some cash. Signed, Sweet Pea." Apparently Sweet Pea is what Leslie would call his brother Lester.
So the husband would call the evil twin.
Right.
That's fucking weird.
It is fucking weird. Even in the 40s, that sounds like some shit.
Oh no, it's just so weird that you know what I mean? Like it shows up now,
right, as
a note under the door.
Right.
How convenient.
So supposedly this is a warning from Lester Lincoln, and in her eyes, to everybody, what she's trying to show is that this only can confirm that Gladys has been, what she's been saying all along. And why doesn't anybody believe her?
It was the one-armed man.
Right. So the same day, a very stressed out and reluctant Alvin confesses to the entire plot. He can't take it. He doesn't hold up under pressure at all. The whiskey's worn off.
Yeah.
The sex has not happened for a few days now.
Yeah,
he got no motivation. Yeah. So now we get to his side of the story. According to Alvin, when Willis finally pulled up to help with his broken down truck, Alvin struck him once in the back of the head with the wrench. And then he couldn't go through with it. And he claims that Willis kind of felt around his neck, kind of walked a little bit like he was staggering and like dazed and confused. Yeah. And he asked Alvin what hit him. And then Willis seems to realize that Alvin had struck him. And Alvin claims that he pulls a knife out of his pocket and that he starts to attack Alvin. And so that in self-defense, he has to pull out his shotgun from the truck and shoot him.
Of course.
Right. And that was all self-defense.
Yes, after
you plotting to kill him.
No, after you struck him in the back of the head.
Right.
Then it was self-defense.
Right. So it was then he said that he knew he'd have to hide the evidence and dispose of the body. Just like they had originally planned.
Yeah.
So Alvin led the sheriff to where the attack had happened on the side of the road. He, confirmed that location. He also took them to where he disposed of the body in some sagebrush that was down another side of the road.
He really fucking went all out.
No, he went all out. And then he showed where he had shoved he had broke down the shotgun and he shoved it in a gopher hole.
Oh, Jesus.
Miles in an opposite direction.
Okay.
The wrench was in his truck that he then had taken, repainted, changed the tires, and left parked on the city street of Caldwell and just left it. But still had the murder weapon in it.
Oh, so the truck he repainted.
He repainted it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Gladys has no idea that Alvin broke and gave up all the info. She has no idea because they've not been in any contact. She's still trying to figure out how to give Alvin an alibi.
Yeah.
And blame this all on Lester. And she just keeps talking.
Yeah.
She gets another person to confirm that they saw Alvin around 2 p.m. in town that day. What she did to get that, I have no idea. Because what is her incentive? You think a blowjob? I mean, that's what I was thinking. Drugs or a blowjob. It's either one.
Yes.
So she gets this person to confirm that they saw Alvin at 2 p.m., specifically 2 p.m. in town. She then takes this info to her lawyer in town, who in turn goes with her. They give a statement to the local sheriff. What she has no idea of, and neither does the attorney, is that they already have Alvin's confession by this time. He had already given them everything and shown them the locations at this point. And
you're fucked.
Right. She's trying to give an alibi for something that she shouldn't even have knowledge of.
Yeah.
How does she know what time of day this happened? She shouldn't.
No.
She shouldn't know that he needed to have an alibi in the town of Caldwell if the murder took place on the highway in between, Jordan Valley and Caldwell. She shouldn't know any of that.
No.
Right. So yet, there she is trying to prove that Alvin couldn't have been in that area at that time of day. But when they question her, she does not give up on her version of the story. She will not let it go that it's Lester and that he is a killer. Even after they arrest her, because they have her for hours. At this point, they ask to talk to her. She willingly goes, and then they will not let her go. They interrogate her for hours. She will not own up to anything at all. She won't give in at all.
Hell no.
Right.
She's been doing this for years.
Oh, right. At some point, too, you start to believe your own lies.
Of course.
Yeah. So they keep her in custody. A trial is planned, and it's announced that the state of Oregon is going to seek the death penalty once Gladys is extradited from Idaho, where she is incarcerated. For some reason, they did not officially arrest her. They had her in Oregon.
Yeah.
They questioned her in Oregon, and then they drove her back to Idaho, and then they arrested her. I don't understand, and there's really no way of knowing what their reason was behind that. The sheriff for taking her back to a different state from where the crime happened. It would have made it so much easier for them to just arrest her in Oregon and hold her in Oregon. She never should have been brought back into the state of Idaho. But for some reason, the sheriff did that and then arrested her.
Well, maybe it's because she never left Idaho.
When they questioned her, they took her into Oregon.
Oh.
And started questioning there.
Okay.
Then she was brought back to Idaho and further questioned and then arrested. So it must have been something in that second part of the interview of the questioning.
Well, yeah, because she went to Oregon voluntarily.
Right.
Maybe they had to initiate it in Idaho. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
I'm not a lawyer, nor do I claim to play one on TV.
No. It definitely it made things a little bit tougher because she would not go along with the extradition.
It's par for this story.
Yeah, very much so.
Just like, what the fuck? Right.
So, yeah, Oregon's going to seek the death penalty. Of course, she doesn't want to go back. She doesn't want to go there because Idaho would not have done that. The prosecution, of course, has its work cut out for it because they can't physically tie her. They know she's involved. They know that she's doing some shady shit. She lied, obviously, and she got a lawyer to lie with her.
Of course.
About an alibi. But that doesn't mean that she isn't, or that she is connected to the actual murder. They cannot place her there.
Well, no, because she's just the mastermind.
Right. So
she's the puppet master.
At some point during the 2 months that she's incarcerated, she's allowed to go back to her home to gather some, quote, necessary articles of clothing and toiletries for the upcoming trial. The sheriff takes her back to her home in Idaho, so Caldwell, Idaho.
Yeah.
She is allowed to go into her room and shut the door on her own.
Okay.
And gather what she needs. She comes out with a suitcase filled with all sorts of shit that you really wouldn't need in jail.
Yeah.
But, whatever. And a box, a pretty large box that's filled with papers.
Uh-oh.
Right. So the sheriff reminds her at that time that anything that she brings back to the jail with her, they have, it's subject to being searched. So she hands over the box to her lawyer who had accompanied them.
Yeah.
And no one is quite sure what that box held, but her niece-in-law was there at that time. And it made her so suspicious that she tore apart Gladys and Willis's room after the group escorted Gladys back to jail.
Uh-huh.
She was so highly suspicious of the fact that this woman comes out of the room with a suitcase and then a box of papers.
Yeah.
So being that she lives in the house too, she doesn't have to wait for a warrant. She doesn't have to get proof. She doesn't have to do nothing. She goes and searches those rooms. Thanks to her, information is found that proves that the note that was from Lester was written in Gladys's handwriting and on paper that she had as personal stationery.
Stupid.
Yeah. So she's linked to the crime. And it was all, it wouldn't, if she hadn't spent so much time trying to cover it up, nobody would have suspected anything was important in that room.
No.
And so when the niece went into the room, she noticed that there was fingerprints on the radiator, which should not have had fingerprints on it.
Yeah.
Like in dust, because nobody's been in that room for a couple of months, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Why the fuck would somebody have touched a radiator? So she opens it up. She notices there's just bits of pieces of paper that have been torn up and tossed in it. When she pulls it out, it's correspondence that basically is her handwriting and her stationery. So they got her. So extradition is granted by the governor in Idaho, and Gladys is moved to Oregon to await trial. And Alvin's been there residing in jail that whole time. So I will note too here that there's a claim that she tried to say she was pregnant with Willis's child during this time, but she never gave birth. And there's not any other mention that I could find of a baby or pregnancy ever.
Oh, she was going to lose a foot too.
Right. She was going to lose that foot, man. She was going to die. So I kind of have a feeling that this was just done to like get some sympathy, basically like, oh, I'm this poor, widowed pregnant mother. What is she going to do now? And she's on trial and, oh, poor her. It's just so horrible. And the evil twin brother and, she's just such this upstanding member of society. And now she's got no daddy for her baby.
That's right.
Yeah. So her trial begins February 24th of 1947. Alvin actually testifies against Gladys, and he's such a doofus. So his trials moved back to March. He held nothing back. He freely gave all the info needed to show like just how guilty she was.
Yeah. And
he's got, the information on why they were actually going to California and what they did there as far as like trying to, get the divorce done with husband number 5.
Yeah.
He knows, of course, that then that means that Willis and Gladys are not legally married. And he also knows that he and Gladys are not legally married. So
yeah, he should have known that when he drove to Reno.
That's the kind of the thing is he knew, but he didn't care.
Yeah.
He didn't care. To him, it was like, yeah, okay, sure. I'll go do this with you, whatever. So at this time too, she is still legally married to Leslie because that divorce won't be finalized until October of 1947. Like the final date. The
evil twin.
Right. So the prosecution was also able to prove that there's not an Aunt Mary who left her $3 million. And of course, the evil twin Lester is not, who's been plotting to marry her and whatever and keep all the money. He's not real.
What?
Yeah, all of her dirty laundry was aired. The press and the community all were aware at that point that she had been married now 7 times and just, what type of person she was.
Yeah, in the 40s, that was just like,
oh my God, yeah. The thought of it was crazy.
I'm surprised they didn't stone her to death.
Well, I was even kind of thinking like, okay, well, she's Mormon and they believe in bigamy. Not women. Women don't get to do that shit. That was a male only thing. Like what men could marry as many wives as they wanted, but women don't get to do that. So,
yeah.
Yeah. And that was still, I'm pretty sure in the 40s, that was still an okay thing. They still were practicing that. I could be wrong on that, but it is something that she as a female would not have been, that wouldn't have been allowed, even with it being a recognized practice in the Mormon religion. So, yeah. With all of that information, it's not hard for the jury to convict her of first-degree murder. In just about 4 hours of deliberation, her trial lasted barely a month. Yeah,
what?
I know.
They didn't try and find the evil twin?
Well, they found him. He wasn't him.
No, there's an evil twin.
It was confirmed. No. Her ex-husband her almost ex-husband and his mom both testified in court that there was no evil twin.
Oh, there was.
She's psychotic.
Next, you're going to tell me there's no Paul Bunyan and Babe the Blue Ox.
Well, I mean, I know what kind of drugs she was taking. I don't know what kind of drugs you're taking, but I'm not going to discuss that again. I'm sorry that I brought it up.
I'm high on life.
Oh, sure you are. So our friend Gladys was sentenced to life in prison. They did not do the death penalty.
What?
I know it's disappointing. I don't know. I don't know if she deserved the death penalty.
I don't think she deserves a death penalty.
To be honest, I mean, she definitely was
she was very dishonest.
She was a scheming bitch, is what she was. Yeah. Very, very much had a drug addiction, which is a shame, and probably some sort of like mental illness. I mean, I'm kind of thinking like a narcissist, sociopathic tendency.
Oh yeah. I don't think it helped either that she was like front and center in a band. You know what I mean? And just like
no, she definitely got the
center of attention in the band, and that's
in the family, in her life. It was the band was a representation of how she was treated in life.
Well, I mean, not just that, but like going different towns and getting all the attention of all the people, the strange people that she didn't know that just showed up to watch her. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's a drug in and of itself.
I mean, it kind of is. Yeah. Like performance high.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think there was a lot, there's probably some mental illness. There was probably some, of course, the drug addiction does not help. Like I said, I don't think that they ever like cured her. I think she just substituted another drug that she was reliant on instead of the barbiturate. Yeah. It doesn't really say that they actually got her clean. So I definitely, all of this was a contributing factor for her. In the end, it caught up with her and she had to pay. You know, when you go for so long without consequences to your actions, it adds up, and it did, So here's the shitty thing though. Yeah, she didn't deserve like the death penalty. But she was paroled after just 9 years in prison. She served 9 years for that. Yeah, so she got out of jail, the state penitentiary in 1956. She went on to marry again.
Oh, God.
Husband number 8. And who should that be? Remember the mention of a man in Sacramento named Leo O'Shea?
Yeah.
Husband number 8.
Okay.
Yeah, she rekindled that romance with him when she was out. There again, I don't understand why she goes back to previous relationships either. She obviously has no hard time finding a man. Why do you got to go backwards?
I don't know.
So, they married in 1961.
When did they divorce?
They didn't. That was her last husband. She actually passed away in 1973. That was her longest marriage.
Right.
Yeah. A funny thing is they were not buried together. She passed away first, and his name and date, like year of birth, is on her. Is on like her year of birth and year of death, and her, and then his name and his year of birth are on this plaque. He's buried in a completely different cemetery in Sacramento with all of his information, just his.
Sweet.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. So Alvin was also convicted after his trial. So his trial started basically right around the time that hers ended.
Yeah.
He was sentenced to the same prison term for first-degree murder. He also did not serve much time. He was paroled after just 10 years.
Jesus.
I feel like it's hard because he was the muscle.
Yeah,
and she was the plan.
Yeah.
But the fact that he actually committed the act, yeah, I don't know if he maybe deserved more time. But then again, I think she deserved more time too. 9 years is just not enough.
No.
I'm sorry. So a lot of this information came from a book that I read that was titled Till Death Do Us, which I think it was a good book. There was just a lot of speculation that I just couldn't see as anything more than like personal opinion in the book. It was hard. It was hard to get through that. But this book, why it's so interesting, had a lot of information. It was written by the grandson of one of Gladys's defense attorneys. So, she handed over that box.
Yeah.
The attorney that was in possession of that box kept it, never opened it, never looked through that information. It was held in secret until after he had already passed away. So this information was not public knowledge up until recently, like within the last decade when this book was published.
Interesting.
And I was like, well, how the fuck is that? How is that okay? For lack of a better term, how is that not a conflict of interest that lawyer held on to that and didn't go through that and didn't share that information? The laws didn't require that at that time. Nowadays, if one lawyer on, say the prosecution gets information, they're required by law to share it with the defense and how they intend to use it.
Yeah.
They didn't have that back in the day. So nobody needed that information. That lawyer sure the fuck was not going to share that information because he probably knew 100% as soon as she handed it over, it was because she didn't want it to be discovered.
Yeah.
And he wasn't going to look into it because if he didn't know, then he couldn't speak on it and he couldn't be questioned on it.
Yeah.
So, in that way, he tried to solidify her defense, basically. It didn't help in the end. But I found that interesting that this information just kind of sat in a trunk for decades and is just now coming to light because nobody touched that information.
So what was in it?
Letters.
Oh,
letters. Between personal papers, letters between her and her husbands, more specifically, letters between her and Willis, and things that she just didn't want to be known. Things that like her legal problems with her fifth husband and and
the evil twin.
Right. Yeah. Basically, shit that would have gotten her a much quicker trial and a guilty verdict for sure.
And a longer sentence.
Maybe, yeah. So that is a very twisted and sordid tale of Gladys Broadhurst. Probably one of the least few known, unknown female bigamists. I've never heard of her, and people don't generally think of females as bigamists. It's kind of an interesting. It's just kind of an interesting case. I thought, the scandals in the media now you hear on, you get all this fucking drama all over the place. This is nothing compared to some of that. The stuff that we hear now is kind of pales in comparison to her actual fucking life.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was an interesting lady. It would have been fun, for lack of a better term, to have a conversation with her and just ask her some questions. Like, why did you do the things that you did? What was your purpose?
I don't know that she could have answered that.
No, I don't think she could have, truthfully, but sometimes that will tell you more than if somebody actually gives you an honest answer.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't think she knew it, and I don't think, I don't know why a psychologist wouldn't have talked to her in prison either.
It was the 50s. I don't know that they...
Yeah, but she didn't get out until 70.
No, she died in 73. She got out in 56.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah, at that time, I don't think a psychologist would have bothered with a female. I don't think so. not for somebody who hadn't even physically murdered her husband.
Yeah.
You know, she didn't poison him. She didn't shoot him. She didn't harm him. She had somebody else do it for her. So I'm not surprised that there's no, maybe somebody did and there's just no record of it, but I'm not surprised that there's no record of it, because she just would have been one out of, you know, hundreds of female inmates in a state penitentiary who committed a crime. And they might not have thought that it was worth the time to speak with her and get any information. Maybe she refused. Maybe they tried and she refused, you know?
Maybe.
She definitely had a narrative in her head. And she didn't want to, even up until the trial, she was innocent. She wouldn't speak on any of their claims. So even during the trial, even when they presented the evidence that was her stationery, it couldn't be. He must have gotten into the house and taken her stationery, and he was trying to forge her handwriting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just always going to be that narrative for her.
At one point, I thought this was where they invented scam calls.
Scam calls?
Yeah. Because she was sending telegrams like, oh, my foot. Please send money. I'm a Nigerian prince. I'm going to lose my foot.
Oh, my God.
And I can't pay my rent.
I'm going to be homeless. Yeah. I guess. Sure.
Yeah, telegrams.
I was thinking too, I was like, this kid, this Alvin kid, he got $4,000. In today's money, he got, that's enough for you to disappear somewhere for a couple of days. Get the fuck out of there. Why are you going to go back? Why would you go back? You had the means to leave. Like, you had the means.
I don't think he would have got paid until he got back.
Well, he didn't get paid until they came back, but they were back like 3 weeks before they murdered him. He had gotten paid by that time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She's a good talker.
Yeah. I've been like, fuck you, lady. I'm taking my money and I'm leaving. $4,000. What equates to $4,000 in today's money? He would have been fine on that for a few months.
Yeah.
In 1945, 46. Yeah. He could have easily gotten someplace else.
That's not him, though. She must have had, like, I don't know.
She had sexual powers. She definitely had something special.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. You'd have to be married that many times, I guess. I don't know. Also, she didn't ever get pregnant. She never had a child. There was no record of her ever having a child from any of her marriages, or especially when she claimed that she was pregnant by Dr. Broadhurst.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how she was able to not get pregnant.
Yeah.
There's a lot of speculation there, but she could have not been able to have children.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's just an interesting person. There was a lot of... It wasn't that interesting as I was reading, and then I got to husband number 5, and I was like, how is this going to end? Like, how the hell is this going to end? And then it was like, and she murdered somebody.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, shit. I'm all for it. I'm here for the old-timey crime. It's just interesting what these people could get away with. How you go back to the same justice of the peace in Reno twice and not get found out. I don't know. Today, my name is Elaine.
Yeah.
I'm going to marry this young guy.
Maybe, yeah. She changed her name. Plus, he probably does a lot of them. He doesn't know you.
I guess. Sure. I don't know. She was said to be quite stunning, though. I'm not sure that anybody would have forgotten her. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, that's her, Gladys. She's a work.
Yeah.
She's a piece of work. So, as always, we thank you guys for listening. We definitely appreciate the patience for the missed episode. And we hope that you guys are all safe and doing well. And just remember, stay out of the woods.
Stay out of the woods.
Bye, guys.